Imperialism has shaped our world in profound ways, often defined as a policy by which powerful nations seek to extend and maintain their control or influence over weaker nations or territories. This era of empires has left indelible marks on politics, culture, and economics, setting the stage for the world as we know it today. Let's embark on a journey back in time to understand the forces, the conquests, and the legacies of this impactful period in history. Imperialism is a crucial concept in our historical narrative. It's the practice of extending a nation's influence through territorial acquisition or by establishing economic and political dominance. This expansionist impulse has not only redefined global power structures, but also profoundly affected cultural and societal development across continents throughout history. Momentum in the Age of Imperialism was first set by the Spanish and Portuguese as they carved early colonial empires. Driven by a blend of economic ambition and religious fervor, these European pioneers ventured across oceans, establishing footholds in the Americas, Africa, and Asia, marking the dawn of modern colonization. The tide of colonization, however, wasn't solely propelled by conquest. Commerce played a pivotal role. The insatiable European appetite for spices, silks, and precious metals funded expeditions to distant lands, intertwining trade and empire as merchants and monarchs alike sought to expand their wealth and influence across foreign territories. As merchants and monarchs sought wealth, an unseen force marched alongside them: disease. Smallpox and other illnesses devastated indigenous populations who had no immunity to these foreign plagues. The impact was catastrophic, often preceding battles by decimating societies and paving the way for European control with chilling efficiency. The conquistadors, daring and often brutal adventurers, carved empires for Spain with steel and musket. Men like Cortés and Pizarro became synonymous with both discovery and destruction, toppling great civilizations such as the Aztecs and Incas, claiming vast territories and forever altering the history of the New World. Moving forward from the conquests, the Spanish implemented the encomienda system, essentially a form of legalized labor control. Indigenous peoples were entrusted to Spanish encomenderos, ostensibly to offer protection and Christian instruction. In reality, this system was rife with forced labor and mistreatment, a harbinger of colonial exploitation. Following the Spanish and Portuguese lead, the English embarked on their own colonial endeavors. In 1607, they established Jamestown in present-day Virginia. This first permanent English settlement in North America would become the cornerstone of future colonial development, despite its early struggles with harsh conditions and complex relations with Native Americans. Unlike their Spanish and English counterparts, the French pursued a different colonial strategy. They focused on trade, particularly in fur, forging alliances with Native American tribes to secure their economic interests. France's approach in the New World was characterized by fewer settlements and a deeper emphasis on cooperation and trade relations. As colonial powers established themselves, the demand for key resources exploded. The lure of lucrative commodities such as sugar, tobacco, and exotic spices led to fierce competition. European powers raced to control these profitable crops, which became the engine driving the colonial economy and intensified the rush for new territories. The African slave trade was a crucial and dark chapter in the Age of Imperialism. As European colonies grew, so did their need for labor, fueling a transatlantic trade network that forcibly uprooted millions of Africans. These slaves became the human foundation upon which colonial agricultural economies were built and maintained. Imperialism met resistance, with uprisings and rebellions flaring across colonies. Indigenous peoples, defending their homelands, cultures, and ways of life, often fought fiercely against colonial forces. These early revolts, though frequently suppressed, set the stage for future struggles for independence and the eventual dissolution of many colonial empires. Moving to governance, European powers established colonial administrations to manage their newfound territories. The systems employed varied, from direct rule to more indirect methods involving local leaders. These structures aim to control resources and populations, integrating colonies into an empire-wide economy geared towards the metropole's benefit. Imperialism radically altered local economies and societies. Infrastructure like railways was developed primarily for resource extraction, often disregarding the needs of indigenous peoples. Traditional crafts and trades suffered under the influx of European goods, uprooting centuries-old economic systems and forcing a depersonalized, profit-driven shift in the social fabric of colonies. As empires expanded, a profound cultural exchange began. Europeans introduced their language, religion, and customs, often erasing indigenous traditions. Conversely, the colonizers adopted local foods, fashion, and knowledge. This mingling, while enriching, often involved violent suppression of native cultures, leading to a complex tapestry of cultural assimilation and conflict. The 7 Years' War, often referred to as the First Real World War, erupted across continents from 1756 to 1763. Fueled by imperial rivalries, major powers like Britain and France battled for dominance in Europe, North America, and Asia. The outcome reshaped the global map of colonies and marked a turning point in colonial history. With colonial ambitions growing, a remarkable twist emerged from the embers of North American settlements. The American Revolution erupted in 1775, a spirited fight against British rule. Driven by cries for liberty and self-governance, the colonists' victory in 1783 was a startling rebuke to the very concept of European imperialism. In 1884, the Berlin Conference marked a turning point in the history of imperialism, as European powers sliced up the African continent like a cake at a banquet. No African leaders were invited to the table, as their lands and futures were carved up, igniting a new, ruthless phase of colonialism. As we turn to Asia, the British Raj in India highlights the dramatic reach of imperialism. Dubbed the jewel in the crown, India was immensely valuable to the British Empire for its vast resources and strategic location. British control reshaped India's economy, culture, and political landscape with lasting repercussions. Shifting eastward, imperialism's grasp tightened around China through the Opium Wars. These conflicts stemmed from Britain's desire to balance trade deficits with China. The resulting Treaty of Nanking crushed China's sovereignty, ceding Hong Kong and opening ports to foreign trade, a sobering episode of coercion for territorial and economic gain. As we turn our gaze to Japan, we encounter Commodore Matthew Perry, the man credited with prying open Japan's doors to the West. In 1853, his fleet steamed into Edo Bay, demonstrating Western military might. This pivotal moment marked the end of Japan's 200-year policy of seclusion, forging a path towards modernization and trade. As imperial powers expanded in Asia, a covert strategy known as spheres of influence was employed. Instead of outright annexation, they carved out zones where each held economic dominance and political influence, particularly in China. This strategy effectively divided the region, entrenching Western control without the need for direct governance. In the same breath of imperial conquest, Europe's tentacles reached Oceania. As part of the scramble for Oceania, powers like Britain, France, and Germany colonized numerous Pacific islands, reshaping the region's destiny. This thrust of colonization often uprooted indigenous cultures and staked new strategic military and trade outposts in remote yet pivotal locations. The ideology fueling empire building was underpinned by a potent mix of nationalism and a paternalistic belief known as the white man's burden. This concept, rooted in a sense of superiority and moral obligation, suggested it was the duty of Europeans to civilize and Christianize the so-called uncivilized world, justifying imperialism as a noble endeavor. As we delve deeper, let's explore how economic theories like capitalism intersected with imperialism. The relentless pursuit of new markets and raw materials drove colonial expansion, with capitalist enterprises often becoming the force behind imperial conquests. This fusion of profit motive and political power played a pivotal role in shaping global empires. But the footprint of imperialism wasn't solely marked by economic gain. It bore a more sinister shadow, the dark side. This era was rife with exploitation, racism, and unprecedented violence. Indigenous populations were subjugated, their resources seized, and cultures often dismantled under the guise of civilization's march, leaving wounds that persist to this day. As empires expanded, so did dissent. The latter part of the imperial epoch sparked the flame of anti-imperialist movements, sowing the seeds of national liberation. Across colonies, people began to resonate with ideas of self-determination and sovereignty, setting the stage for resistance that would eventually redraw the global map. In the aftermath of the World Wars, a weakened Europe could no longer maintain its grip on vast territories. A wave of decolonization swept across Asia, Africa, and the Middle East, as countries broke the chains of imperialism to form independent nations, dismantling old empires and shaping a new world order. Imperialism's legacy remains etched in the modern world, presenting in the form of political borders, economic disparities, and cultural blends. Many contemporary geopolitical conflicts and alliances find their origins in the imperial past, and the debate over the moral and economic ramifications continues to influence global discourse today. In closing, the age of imperialism indelibly shaped our world, from the drawing of national boundaries to the economic systems and even the cultural identities we see today. These imperial roots still impact international relations and socioeconomic structures, reminding us how history's reach extends into our present. Thank you for joining us on this historical journey with Spectrum Sphere. If you've enjoyed unraveling the complexities of the age of imperialism, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more enlightening content every week. We value your curiosity and look forward to seeing you in the next video.